You know the drill. It's January or maybe the start of a new quarter, and that calendar invite pops up.
Oh, no.
Company culture transformation kickoff, or my favorite, unlocking your owner's mindset.
I have been to so many of those.
You go, you do the trust falls, you listen to some keynote speaker tell you to be the change, and everyone feels really energized for, what, about 48 hours?
If you're lucky, usually it wears off by the time you hit the parking lot.
Exactly, because Monday rolls around and you're back to reality. You're waiting 3 weeks for approval to buy a standard software license.
Or you're stuck in a meeting explaining your project to a manager who has, absolutely no context for what you actually do.
Right. Feels like all that money spent on culture just, poof, evaporated.
It's a huge frustration and honestly a massive waste of capital.
Mhm.
Companies pour billions into trying to change how people think, their mindset, but they rarely touch the environment those people operate in.
And that, I think, brings us perfectly to our deep dive today.
It does. We're unpacking a really fascinating piece of research called Structure Trumps Strategy, the architectural path to agility.
Structure trumps strategy. Wow. That is a fighting start. I mean, we're so used to hearing that Peter Drucker line, culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Right.
But the source is basically walking into the boardroom and flipping the table over.
It really is.
Mm.
The core thesis here is provocative, but it's grounded in some hard evidence. The authors argue that people don't really follow strategy, and they don't even really follow culture.
They follow structure?
They follow structure. Behavior is a function of the environment.
Hmm?
If you want an organization to be agile, you have to stop blaming employee attitudes and start hacking the org chart.
Okay, let's unpack that carefully, because usually when I hear restructuring, my stomach drops. It just sounds like consultants, layoffs, and moving boxes around on a PowerPoint slide.
And that's not what this is. This source suggests architectural thinking is something completely different.
How?
It's not about delayering just to cut costs. It's about the physics of the organization. How does information flow? Who actually has the right to say yes without asking for permission? Our mission for this deep dive is to explore how changing those reporting lines and decision rights is the secret weapon for adaptability.
So we're going to look at why the classic pyramid, the structure almost all of us work in, is failing. And then we've got some case studies that, frankly, sound made up, but they aren't.
I know the ones you mean.
We're talking about a tomato processing plant with 0 managers.
Zero.
And a Chinese appliance giant that basically blew itself up to survive. It's a roadmap for dismantling the bureaucracy that drives everyone crazy.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's start with the diagnosis. Why do we hate the pyramid so much? I mean, play devil's advocate for a second. The pyramid gives people clarity, right? I know who my boss is. I know what my career path looks like.
That is the trade-off. You're trading that perceived safety for actual survival. The pyramid was designed for the industrial era, where the goal was standardization.
Making sure every car that rolls off the line is identical.
Exactly. You wanted the person at the top, who supposedly knew the most, to control the people at the bottom, to ensure every Model T Ford looked exactly the same.
Which works great if the world isn't changing.
Precisely.
Yeah.
But today, the environment is volatile. The source identifies a fatal flaw in the pyramid: decision latency.
Decision latency. That sounds like a very polite way of saying, I'm waiting for my boss to read their email.
Well, it's deeper than just a slow boss. It's systemic. In a pyramid, information has to travel up the chain to get a decision.
Right.
And then the decision has to travel back down. In a fast-moving market, by the time that approval comes, the opportunity is gone.
The market's already moved on. And
Yeah.
there's that other issue the source highlights that I think everyone will recognize, the telephone game.
Oh, absolutely.
We all played this as kids. You whisper purple monkey dishwasher to one person, and by the time it gets to the end of the line, it's turtle money, fish water.
That is exactly what happens to business intelligence. Frontline employees, the ones actually talking to customers, they have all the context.
They know why the product is failing.
They know the customer is screaming about a specific bug. But as that info moves up the layers, it gets summarized, filtered, and sanitized.
So the CDO gets a nice clean dashboard that says customer satisfaction, 85%, totally missing the fact that the 15% who are angry are leaving because of a 5-minute fix that no one is authorized to make.
And that is the fundamental disconnect. Senior leaders have the authority, but not the context. Frontline employees have the context, but not the authority.
That is such a painful realization. You're sitting there knowing exactly what to do, but you're administratively paralyzed. So the knee-jerk reaction is delayering. Just fire the middle managers. Problem solved.
And the source is very clear. That is a trap.
A trap how?
If you remove the managers but you don't redistribute the authority, you just create chaos. You end up with a flat organization where everyone is still waiting for the CEO to decide everything, except now the CEO has 200 direct reports and is having a nervous breakdown.
Okay, so that's not the answer. Let's look at the actual solutions. The source offers three main architectural fixes. The first one is hierarchical flattening and the span of control.
This is where it gets really interesting. It's not just about having fewer layers. It's about radically expanding the span of control.
Span of control. And that's just HR speak for how many people report to one manager, right?
Correct. In a traditional company, a manager might have, say, 5 to 7 direct reports.
So they can keep a close eye on them,
Keep a close eye on them, check their work, guide them.
micromanage them.
Well, yes. But the source proposes something called forced delegation. What happens if a manager has 20 direct reports? Or 30?
I assume they'd panic. It would be impossible to check everyone's work.
And that is the point.
Hmm.
If you structurally give a manager too many people to supervise, they cannot micromanage. The structure forces them to delegate decision-making to the team.
Because it's just physically impossible for them to sign off on everything.
Exactly. It's behavioral engineering. And Netflix is, they're the golden child for this.
Right.
Despite being this massive global media company, they maintain only about 4 or 5 layers between the CEO and the individual contributors.
4 or 5? That's wild. I worked at smaller places with more layers than that in just the marketing department.
And its result is speed.
Mm-hmm.
Product teams launch features. Marketing teams run campaigns. They don't need executive sign-off for every move. This structural agility is what allowed them to pivot from mailing DVDs to streaming, and then again to producing original content.
They just move faster than competitors stuck in committees. But, okay, if you want to talk about radical, we have to talk about hair.
The Chinese appliance giant.
Yes. And honestly, what their CEO, Zhang Rudeman, did. It sounds like he read a management textbook and decided to set it on fire.
He essentially blew up the company to save it.
Mm-hmm.
He looked at his massive functional organization and realized it was too slow, so he dissolved the departments.
What, like all of them?
No more HR department, no more R&D department. He broke the company into thousands of microenterprises.
Thousands. So instead of a department, you have a team of, what, 10 people?
About 10 to 15. And here's the key. Each microenterprise has end-to-end responsibility. They hire their own people, they manage their own P&L, they set their own strategy.
So they're basically little startups inside the corporate whale.
Exactly. And the governance isn't boss and subordinate. It's market-based contracting.
Okay, can you explain that? How does that work inside a company?
So imagine the HR department isn't a cost center that you just have to deal with. Imagine an internal HR team is a service provider. If you run a product team and you don't like their recruiting service, you can fire them and hire an outside headhunter.
Wow.
The internal HR team actually have to compete for your business.
That changes the dynamic completely. Suddenly, HR has to treat other employees like paying customers. It brings the pressure of the market right inside the building.
It does.
But wait, I have to ask the uncomfortable question. If a microenterprise fails, if they don't get contracts, what happens to the people?
It's brutal, but efficient. If a microenterprise fails to perform, it dissolves. The employees usually have a grace period to find a role in another microenterprise, so they pitch themselves to another team.
And if no one hires them?
Yes, then they are out.
Okay, so the stakes are incredibly high. It's not just, I missed my bonus, it's, we lost our company.
Which drives incredible alignment and focus. But obviously, that model is intense.
Just a bit. Okay, so that's solution A, flattening, but I can hear listeners thinking, if we just break into tiny teams, won't everyone be running in different directions? That leads us to solution B, modularity.
This concept draws heavily from software engineering. In software, you want modular code components that work independently but talk to each other through clear interfaces.
Right.
You want to apply that same logic to people.
And the classic example here is Spotify. I feel like everyone in tech has seen that Spotify model diagram with the squads and tribes.
They have, but they often miss how it actually works. The core unit is the squad, a cross-functional team that owns a specific feature, like the search function.
So that squad has a developer, a designer, a data person. Everyone needed to ship that feature.
Exactly. They don't need to ask a design department for a resource. The resource is on the team. But here's where it gets clever. To prevent chaos, they use chapters.
I'm trying to visualize this. It sounds a bit like a sports team.
That's a perfect analogy. Think of the squad as the team on the field playing the game. They just want to win this match.
Okay.
The chapter is like the position coaches. All the quarterbacks meet to study film and improve their throwing technique. That's the chapter. But on Sunday, they play for the squad.
Ah, I get it. So the chapter keeps your skills sharp and ensures you aren't, coding in a language no one else understands, but the squad is your actual job.
That's it. The squad is for what you work on, and the chapter is for how you do it. Standards versus delivery.
There's a great case study in the source about ING, the bank, adopting this. Which is funny because you don't think of banks as agile.
No, you think of them as fortresses of hierarchy.
I do.
But they dissolved their departments and formed 350 squads. They reduced time to market from months to weeks.
But they must have had some guardrails.
They did. This is a crucial detail. Governance forums. They realize that while squads can decide on features, you can't have 350 squads deciding on their own banking security protocols.
Right, that's how you go to jail.
Exactly. So they created specific forums for architectural decisions, things that affect everyone. It's about knowing what needs to be centralized and what needs to be distributed.
This leads us perfectly into Solution C, and this is probably the most controversial one. Distributed authority.
This is critical. We need to distinguish between perceived empowerment and structural empowerment.
Okay.
Perceived empowerment is when a manager tells you, I want you to own this, but you still have to cease them on every email and get their signature on the budget.
It's autonomy with a leash. It's fake.
It's fake. Structural empowerment is when you have the formal right to sign off. You don't ask, you inform.
The example that really jumped out at me here is Morningstar. They process tomatoes. It's a blue-collar industrial manufacturing environment.
And they have no managers.
Bleh.
Zero.
Okay, I hear you, but I have to call time out. A factory with heavy machinery and no managers. That sounds like a liability nightmare. What happens when two employees disagree on safety protocols? Who breaks the tie?
That's the most common question. It's not anarchy, it's highly structured. They use something called colleague letters of understanding.
Letters of understanding.
Every employee negotiates a contract with their peers, the people up and down the line from them. It outlines exactly what they're accountable for.
So I have a contract with the guy running the forklift and the woman running the canning machine.
Yes. And to your question about conflict, if two peers disagree, they are required to bring in a third peer as a mediator. If that fails, it goes to a panel of peers.
So there is a court system, basically.
Exactly. But the decision never goes up to a boss. It stays horizontal. And the power is real. Any individual can authorize a capital expenditure like buying a new $50,000 machine.
What? Really?
They can justify it to the peers who will be affected by the purchase.
That is wild. It treats employees like actual adults.
It turns everyone into the CFO of their own little domain. But, and this is a huge but, you cannot do this without the next piece of the puzzle.
You can't distribute authority if you hoard information.
Exactly. If I'm going to buy the $50,000 machine, I need to see the bank account. I need to know we have the money.
Right. Which brings us to the great enabler, information transparency. Distributed decisions require distributed data.
And the source talks about Valve, the gaming company. They are famous for their desk on wheels culture.
Right. You choose your own projects.
You literally roll your desk to the team you want to join. But that only works because everyone sees the data. They see the project financials, the user metrics, the potential value.
If the data was hidden, people would just join the coolest sounding project, not the most valuable one.
Exactly. And then there's Breathwater Associates. They take transparency to a level that might make some people squirm.
Radical transparency.
Bridgewater records every meeting. Every decision rationale is open to everyone. It allows for believability-weighted decision-making.
Which means it's not a democracy where every vote counts the same.
Right. It's an evidence-based meritocracy. You can't play office politics or hoard information to gain power because everything is out in the open.
So we've flattened the pyramid, we've modularized into squads, we've given them real authority, and we've given them the data. What's left?
The outside world. Ecosystem coordination. This is connecting the dots to the bigger picture. If you are agile on the inside, but you hit a brick wall as soon as you talk to a supplier, you're still slow.
Zara is the hero here. They get a design from a sketch to a coat on a hanger in a store in 2 weeks.
They smash the wall between design and manufacturing. In a traditional company, designers draw a picture. Then a procurement department bids it out to factories, negotiates prices, and months later, you get close.
The procurement department is the bottleneck.
At Zora, design teams work directly with manufacturers. The manufacturers see real-time sales data. They know what's selling. They adjust production instantly rather than waiting for a new contract.
It seems like the theme here is removing intermediaries. Whether it's middle managers or procurement departments, the goal is to connect the people with the problem to the people with the solution.
That's it. Peer-to-peer connection beats hierarchical escalation every time. Toyota does this. Two supplier engineers work on site at Toyota. If there's a problem, it's engineer to engineer, not lawyer to lawyer.
So bringing this all home, the takeaway here is that true agility comes from structural modularity. It's about flattening the pyramid, creating these autonomous units, and connecting them with clear data.
And the big aha moment for me is realizing that culture is often just a symptom of structure. If you want people to act like owners, you can't just tell them to in a seminar.
Right.
You have to structurally give them ownership rights, decisions, budget, data.
You can't ask someone to cook a gourmet meal if you've locked the pantry and only given them a spoon.
That is a great analogy. Structure dictates the possible behaviors.
So here's the Monday morning application. If I'm listening to this and I'm not the CEO, I can't just dissolve the org chart tomorrow. What do I do? How do I use this?
You look at your own team. Look at your own span of control. Are you hoarding decisions? Can you create a micro contract with a peer in another department instead of escalating a conflict to your boss?
You can build little pockets of agility.
You can build little pockets of structural agility even inside a rigid pyramid. Start designing your own interfaces.
I love that.
Stop trying to motivate people to swim upstream. Change the current.
Think like an architect, not just a strategist. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.